Yes. Hello, Jeremy. Hello, Ben.
Hey, everybody. Great to see you all.
Gene, I saw you yesterday, but good to see everyone else.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you survived, because when I saw you, you were standing in the sun sweating, and I thought, whoa. It's 92 degrees. I hope he's going to move.
We're good to go, by the way.
Okay, well then let's start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 7th meeting of the CB6 Transportation Committee. My name is Gene Santoro. I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 7:04. Tonight, we're joined by Assistant District Manager, Brendan Berth. Congratulations again on your promotion, Brendan.
Thank you.
Okay, members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. All questions are being recorded anyway, so don't feel that you're left out. B has graciously volunteered to take minutes tonight. Thank you, B. And we're now ready for that most exciting moment in meetings. Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. B. Disman.
Present.
Charles Fernandez.
Present.
Sandy McKee.
Present.
Bill is not here yet. Matt Roberts.
Present.
Abstain.
Burrow.
Here.
Larry Shire.
Present.
Ken Seligman. Whoever has that background noise, there we go.
That's Jim. He's waiting. I think he's waiting to say present.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Ronnie White.
Present.
Yep. Okay.
And James is also present. So we have quorum.
Excellent. Okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. Voila, there it is. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from last month's meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office as well. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay, seeing no objections, the minutes from last month's meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. Okay, the next favorite part of the meeting after taking attendance, the ground rules. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. 1, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. We now have a separate raise hand icon, so we don't have to go through the rest of it. If you're having technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty, and Brendan will give you a hand. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record in the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so you can speak. Last but not least, we are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting. So please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion? Okay, so let us move on to the agenda. First up is the Second Avenue bike lanes potential, calling for a potential widening, studies for about a potential widening of the Second Avenue bike lanes. Brendan, do you want to show the agenda on the screen?
Sure.
There, that's worded better than what I just did. Okay, as I think I've explained this before, the reasoning behind this is simply that you've all seen the Streets blog article that was sent out with some numbers in it, certainly with support from 2 council members and the borough president for the idea of like looking at widening this, because the fact is that the traffic is increasing constantly, and there are a lot of reasons for that. In fact, Brendan, maybe we should put up the draft reso, because those, the whereases actually list what the reasoning is, as they should, behind asking for this. So it's a kind of a host of things, okay? The numbers of cyclists are just growing everywhere. And certainly on this, Second Avenue is one of the only 2 bike lanes in the city, the other one being First Avenue, that connects multiple boroughs, more than just 1 or 2. I mean, Second Avenue connects Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, which is one reason traffic is so heavy on it. The East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, which we're all aware of operating here in Sty Cove right now, has shut down a chunk of the Greenway, which was also a very heavily trafficked corridor for people, especially bikers. And that's now not available. So those folks have all been shunted over to Second Avenue. Traffic across the East River Bridge has increased 30% over the last year. And next year, DOT will be opening the south outer roadway of the 59th Street Bridge to pedestrian-only traffic, moving pedestrians off the north side of the bridge. So that'll be devoted only to bikes and other 2-wheeled vehicles. So that's going to increase the traffic on that as well. And all of that stuff winds up on Second Avenue, and at least chunks of it do. So that's the thinking behind this, besides the actual fact that, as you see, a couple of spot traffic counts that were done show the actual ratio of bike to car users during rush hours, and it's pretty amazing. It's like less than 2 to 1 right now. So that's why we're asking, I would like us to ask DOT to study the possibilities and study the hows and whys of how to widen the Second Avenue bike lane so that we don't wind up with collisions, traffic jams, overcrowding, and just dangerous conditions. So that's it. So I'll open the floor to questions. Sandy.
It may not be so much of a question, but I'm wondering if we can also put something in here about the open restaurants that actually right now are on the opposite side of the bike lane. And seems like it's something we're going to have to deal with as we widen it. I absolutely am in favor of widening the bike lane, but it seems that that's going to have to be part of the DOT study that they do, is how to
Sure.
incorporate those.
It will have to be part of it. I'd rather not get too far into the weeds with it. That's why I wrote the reso the way I did. They're going to have to study how they're going to do that. And I don't know that I want to make, I don't know that we should make any suggestions about that. Let's let them study what it is that they want to do. And then they're going to have to come back to us anyway, and we can deal with it then. Unless you've got some specific thing that you want to propose, I'd rather just stay out of that.
Nothing specific. And I guess the other item might be that as part of this, it would be great if they could address the varying speeds within the bike lanes right now. You know, we have the motorized scooters, and that as part of their widening could also be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Could we just add a request that a part of their study be for that as well?
How would you word that?
I'd have to think about it a little bit, but I'd say, you know, as part of your study, please address the varying speeds that we have within the bike lanes and how that can be accommodated within a wider lane.
Okay, I don't have any real objection to that. Does anybody else?
Great, thank
Okay, I don't see any objections, so sure, we can add something in the resolved about that. Any other questions or observations or remarks? I don't see any, yeah. I see a question from the public. This is the same sort of thing. It's actually in chat. Yeah. He would suggest asking for a wider sidewalk to house open restaurant space directly opposite the restaurant, not across a sidewalk or a bike lane. Okay, I really don't want to get into the weeds about this. What we're asking for is very straightforward and simple. We're asking DOT to conduct the appropriate studies to look into this. After they do that and they come back to us, that's the appropriate time to raise some of these questions because they will have more information than we have. We don't have any information right now, what we're operating, except for basic information about traffic flow and stuff like that. And we need them to do the advanced studies that'll tell us what's feasible and what isn't. Okay, B, you're up.
Yeah, I actually support this, but I do have two questions. Based on your experience, how long would it take DOT to do such a study? Okay. And two, has there been any informal discussion, Gene? And do you have an informal read?
I have a very informal read, and that flows into the first question, which is realistically, maybe they'd be able to start doing a study sometime this year. My guess is that they'll push it off until next year. Certainly any implementation would be pushed off until next year. They might do the studies now. It is only June. Maybe they can find a way. But as background, DOT is right now concentrating by internal and mayoral order on the outer boroughs more heavily to catch them up to Manhattan, where they feel like they've spent a lot of time and energy. So we're getting stuff, but their primary focus is going to be less on us and more on that. So I think that's more likely the time frame. Maybe we'll get a study on it this year. We certainly wouldn't get any kind of implementation or feedback until more likely early 2022. Okay, Larry.
One of the questions that appears relates to something that has concerned me and also intrigued me at the same time, and that is the possibility of creating a bi-directional bike path. We have that in short segments, such as underneath the bridge itself, but with a much wider course, and knowing that there are an awful lot of people who do ride against the traffic as salmon against the current, I think maybe we should suggest that the DOT examine this. Whether they adopt it or not is another question.
Okay, you're right. We don't have very many of those at all, and there are reasons for that. They're usually in shorter segments, a couple of blocks here, a couple of blocks there. There are rare exceptions around the city, but they're very rare. There's enough trouble controlling the traffic flow as it is. As you mentioned, there are people who are salmoning even in the bike lanes, which is wrong. I don't think that DOT is going to want to encourage that. I'm pretty sure they're not going to want to adopt anything that involves creating something like that.
Well, I think
and we do have First
Yeah.
Avenue that goes north, which is a block down, which is the whole point. Another Vision 0 priority corridor that connects the same four boroughs that I mentioned at the beginning of this reso, going northbound.
I understand that, but I do think that this is a possible alternative, even if it ultimately is dismissed with reasons, should be looked at in the context of a traffic study, because it does examine human behavior and could provide some additional rationale for further enforcement.
Okay, we don't have hardly any enforcement as it is, Larry, so I'm not sure where you're going with that. Let me ask what the sense of the committee is. Does anybody else support the idea that the Second Avenue bike lane should be studied with a notion of
Are you asking for raise of hands?
I'm asking, no, well, yeah, I see Brian had his hand up before. Sandy, did you put your hand up to speak to that point? Or Brian, were you speaking to that point?
I was going to call the question, but
Okay.
the
Well,
other thing,
hold off for a second.
the reason I was calling the question ties into this, and that is that, Gene, I agree with your take on this, that what we're asking for here is for DOT to just take a look at the overall situation. And when we had a chance as a committee to discuss the core idea, we had open feedback session. I think everybody's given their feedback on that. We're getting in the weeds about potential details that don't exist or upgrades or whatnot. I would like to look at bidirectionality, but I think we should ask for that if DOT is actually proceeding on this. Not at this stage. I mean, we could discuss it all night, but there's no point in it.
Fair enough. So Larry, why don't we shelve this until later? I don't see any support anyplace. It's for this. Okay,
Sandy-
do you have
Sandy's raised
support?
her
I
hand.
asked you. Sandy, do you want to speak to this?
If I could, I think we could just add something that says that we ask the DOT to study every possible design option. We don't need to be specific, but just say that, you know, there's a broad series of solutions. We'd like them to look at them all.
I
Or
buy
something
that.
very general.
Okay.
I buy that.
That was all. Thank you.
I'm smiling because that's almost the same as saying nothing. But anyway, okay. Well, to look at all solutions. Fine. Anybody else have their hand up? I'm not seeing anybody.
I don't see any hands up either. I just want to quickly note a few, not really questions, but comments in the Q&A section.
I'm already seeing them, Brendan. Thanks. Yeah, if people are riding in both directions, DOT should examine if the bike lane can be treated for this. Yeah, okay. That's pretty much it. We've covered that with the idea of just asking them to look at various possible solutions. B, yes.
I was going to follow Brian and call the question.
Okay. Well then, Brian, would you like to second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. So committee members, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. B. Disman,
4,
Charles Fernandez,
In favor.
Sandy McKee,
In favor.
Matt Roberts,
Favor.
Gene Santoro,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven,
In favor.
Ronnie White,
In favor.
and James Wilson.
Now, in favor.
Okay, with 9 in favor, nobody opposed, nobody abstaining, and nobody abstaining for cause, the resolution passes.
Okay, so since I wrote this, I will revise it as suggested with the varying speeds and all solutions, language added in, and that will, I think, take care of that. Thank you. Great job. Moving along, we've got item number 2, which is Brian stepped up to offer to write the reso on this, so this draft is his. And this is the reso in support of delivery bikers being able to use the restrooms of the restaurants and bars that they actually deliver for. Now we've got Jeremy Unger here from Councilmember Rivera's office because this is actually Councilmember Rivera's bill. So we thought it would be appropriate to have Jeremy come here and well, I don't know, at least to see his face, if not to have darts thrown at him, whichever, whatever. So
Whatever will entertain the committee.
there you go. That's it. So it's fairly straightforward, I think. I know, again, you've had all the materials for this, so you've read them. Are there questions, responses, remarks? Okay, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for entertaining my brief remarks on this. That I just wanted to note that the actual legislation in question is very complex and has a lot of very sensible carve-outs and exceptions and, you know, sort of terms on these kind of things. One of the things is if the venue in question, which a delivery worker is working for, and they happen to not be an employee, a regulation does not apply if this outside employee has to cross through a food preparation area or an area in which they might be in danger in order to access the restroom. So those are very reasonable carve outs to answer some of the concerns that small businesses might have. Small businesses are our constituents too. This is not just something that us residents are going to, you know, drop like a bomb on the city's food preparation industry and go figure it out. But in general, there's a lot of detail in there in which to preserve reasonable access and which to keep the right sort of boundaries in place for this particular kind of access. I just think, I don't know if anybody, I haven't talked to anybody about this particular legislation. It's been out for a month and a half. Nobody on the committee reached out to me or anything. If we're going to speak about it tonight, if there's any details, we can discuss that. I think everybody just kind of gets the overall gist of it. But a lot of questions you might have about details of this are all in the bill. It's very extensive. Our resolution does not contain all the details in the bill. Our resolution supports the legislation.
Okay, well, and if there are any questions about any sorts of details, that's precisely why Jeremy's here, besides gracing our screen with his presence. So if you've got them, fire away. Sandy.
I'm just wondering if there has been any resistance to this, like from small business owners, or what's been the pushback?
Community Board 7 pushed back on it.
And what was their pushback?
It was
Jeremy.
Inhumane, sorry. But no, I don't think, I haven't heard anything. You can ask Jeremy.
There you go. That's why he's here. Go on, Jeremy, you're on.
I appreciate Brian being very knowledgeable on the issue. It's great. No, yeah, besides CB7, we've seen, actually, I think, if not, I don't think we've seen anyone against it. We've been in a lot of conversations with the New York City Hospitality Alliance, which represents, you know, the large majority of restaurants in the city. While they have not taken an official position, they've been working throughout the pandemic to kind of politely encourage their members to provide access to restaurants, or provide restaurant bathroom access to delivery workers, I should say. In reviewing the bill with them, I think they're going to we actually have a hearing on this bill tomorrow. That was one that I wanted to mention. If it's relevant for your resolution, there's going to be a hearing tomorrow in the Committee on Consumer Affairs on this bill and the rest of the bills in this kind of package we're doing on delivery workers' rights. I expect that the Hospitality Alliance will be there, but I think that in my conversations with them, their questions are more technical, just making sure that, kind of like what Brian was suggesting, that, you know, if a worker has to access it through a way that would impact the operations of the business in terms of the actual food preparation, you know, that's something we totally understand. They're going to be, every restaurant in New York City is very unique and how small or uniquely shaped it can be, and sometimes, you know, that can present its own challenges. And then the same thing I would just say is that this is not giving a license to delivery workers just to be biking along, decide they want to go to the bathroom and pop into any restaurant they see. They would have to be in the process of picking up an order or concluding an order at a restaurant for them to be able to use that facility by the law.
Thanks. And Brian, do you want to answer CB7? What objection did they have?
I'll defer this to Jeremy, but I don't have a very good opinion of what they said.
To be completely honest, their resolution, I think, came out right before our bill actually officially came out. I don't like to, you know, speak ill of a community board or like one the politics or whatever of that. I don't know. I wasn't at the meeting at
You know,
CD7.
well, Jeremy, let me suggest that you don't have to characterize them or editorialize about it. What did they say?
I would have to pull it up, but I mean, and basically, I think I honestly would have to pull it up. Give me 1 second. I think what they were saying was basically just that. Sorry, I don't want to. I think I'm going to mislead.
Okay. Well, I
if I
see
don't
that
pull up the article.
Ben has just put up on in the chat the Streets blog article about
That's
this.
what I was
imagine
looking
goes into detail. So there's your answer.
If everyone wants to take a second to read that, it's illuminating. But that pretty much sums it up.
Sure.
Yeah, I think what they basically are just saying that it's like it's going to make restaurants suffer, but talks about it in such a vague and I think general way that I would pretty strongly disagree with the characterization of what their chair said. And I will note, I think there was quite a lot of opposition from his own board in regards to that resolution.
Meaning that they supported it and he didn't.
No, meaning that
Oh,
I think the
he
chair
supported
supported it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in that they didn't actually vote down the res, though they tabled it. And the coverage doesn't really reflect that the bill is actually, or their reso is still in process officially. As with most community boards, it's not like Congress. If something is tabled, it's not effectively dead. They are going to review it and come back to it. The reason they tabled it was because of opposition, and the Streets blog article counted 4 committee members who were staunchly opposed to it. And I think we have some of our longer term board members understand that if there's something that's truly that divisive, sometimes we just, take a month to cool off and look at the issues and see if we can come back with a more general sort of agreement. I looked at this bill and I thought there was no need for us to do that. I think it's pretty straightforward for us.
Okay, B, you have your hand up.
I'm flipping all around. I wanted to read what was on the chat. No, I support this. I listened to Brian and the carve outs. It will be a complex bill because you do want to make sure that your food production, the areas are protected. But this is a basic human right, guys. And so I don't understand how someone could really be against this as it is written. So I support it. And I know since I've commented, I can't call the question. So I hope someone else does.
Well, now there's a lead in. Okay, Sandy, you have your hand up.
Other than this, it brought about a lot of jokes about why this was at transportation, but I call the question.
Okay, Larry?
I second.
Okay, there we go. Let's move along to the nose counting part of the deal here. You're on,
Okay,
Brendan.
so members of the committee, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. B. Disman.
In favor?
Charles Fernandez.
In favor.
Sandy McKee.
In favor.
Matt Roberts.
In favor.
Gene Santoro.
In favor?
Larry Shire.
In favor.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor.
Ronnie White.
In favor.
And James Wilson.
James, you got to unmute yourself and vote.
In favor.
Great.
Okay. With 9 in favor, nobody opposed, nobody abstaining, and nobody abstaining for cause, the resolution passes.
Okay. Good job. Now, I don't see Colleen. Is she here?
No, I do not see her here.
Okay, well, then I guess we're not going to get a DOT report this month. I had a couple of questions, but they're not, someone asked offline if you guys got the letter from Ed Pinkar about the gym. Okay, thank you. You got the letter from Ed Pinkar about the 2 bike stations, city bike stations on 47th Street that are going to be made 3D instead of 2D. As far as I can tell, 3D means that the wiring can cross like the 2-inch curb level and go from one plane to another. That's 3D. So those are 2 existing bike stations that they're going to adapt to this new system, where so that they don't have to, things don't all have to be in a row. They can move them up and down, on and off the sidewalk, basically plate by plate. And so that will be done sometime. We'll see when. That's about it for that. Budget requests. Phil isn't here either. So what I'd suggest, all he was going to do was ask you guys to send him your questions or remarks about the stuff on the spreadsheets that he sent out. So you should just do that. We don't need to take meeting time up with doing that. I'm sure your questions you can type your questions and send them to him, and then he'll collate them in the spreadsheet. And that'll be that. Moving along, that leaves me with the chair's report, I think. And 2 things. One is that the Sam Schwartz Engineering studies for proposals for 3rd Avenue will be up on the website soon. We've just gotten that done. The flyers are going to be passed out to people in the neighborhood are also completed now. So the people who volunteered to do that will be getting copies of those and handing them to people, walking in and out of businesses, working streets, whatever, to get some responses. And the second thing, which a couple of you know about because I've mentioned it, is that lo and behold, our fabulous 37th Street tunnel, underground passageway to the East River, is actually being worked on. Don't all gasp at once. It's happening. It's not city DOT. It's apparently state DOT. We're confirming that now. We know it's not the city. I saw it last week. There was a big flatbed truck with a crane and a bunch of guys up on top of it pulling those limestone slabs, is what I think they are, on the western facing of the tunnel, and pulling them off the cornice and putting them on the truck because they're taking them off to refurbish them, and they're going to fix them, and then they're going to fill them in where they're messed up or whatever. They've also, today when I went through, they were working on the interior columns, taking off, I assume it's like polished granite facing or something, taking those sections off and refitting them and removing broken ones and stuff like that. We have no idea how long this is going to take. We don't know what the extent of the project is. That's why I started with city DOT to try to find out. They're not doing it, so we have to move on to state DOT and get a sense of what it is they're doing. What the crew told me they think they're doing is precisely that, redoing all the tile work, redoing the facades, and basically sort of just generally cleaning the place up. I didn't ask them about lighting, but we'd want to know about that for sure. So when we hear from state DOT what it is that their plan is, what the time frame is and all that stuff, we will communicate it to you. Because I know that some of us at least have been waiting some significant amount of time for this to happen, like maybe ever since they reopened it. So it would be, but it's very positive that they're actually doing it, because who knew? And that's really about it for me. So unless anybody else has observations, questions, problems, wants to talk baseball, wants to talk basketball playoffs, I don't know. I can see from your faces those options enthuse all of you. Okay. So do I hear a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Great. It's 7:39. I think that maybe 35 minutes may be a transportation committee record. I'm not sure. We'll have to have